trust your own inner guidance over what anybody else is saying, because your inner guidance knows the way through your Kundalini awakening. And if you want to journey there, then your inner guidance also knows the way to your Kundalini awakening, right? And it will naturally bring you there. You don't have to force this. Please don't force this. Welcome to the Seeing in the Dark podcast, the podcast for new ways of leading and doing business. No more separation between money, power, and leadership, and being a deeply spiritual human being. Seeing in the Dark is about walking paths that have not been walked before and truly making a change in a world in which old ways are crumbling. My name is Nicole Nima Costeres, CEO of a multiple six-figure soul-based business, and here to take you into the mysteries of purpose, power, intuition, and soul-based leadership. May you embody your own unique essence so deeply that your vibration naturally teaches, inspires, and assists others. Let's dive in. So before we go into this week's episode, I want to make two short disclaimers in a way. The first one is, in this episode, I will be sharing about symptoms that can happen when Kundalini awakens in the body. These symptoms are shared from my own experience in combination with some of the symptoms that can be applied to many people that experience Kundalini awakening. However, they are not an excuse or a reason to not go to a doctor, for example, when you don't trust the symptoms that are happening in your body or where something seems to feel off. Like, I've been doing health checkups over the last few years with my doctor as well, and I think it can never hurt to include regular medicine as well. Yeah, that's one. Second one is, I'll be sharing about my experience with Kundalini awakening a lot around the symptoms that I was experiencing. Now, in essence, Kundalini awakening for me is not about the symptoms, right? They are something that comes along with it. But in essence, Kundalini awakening is about awakening to more of yourself, awakening to more of life, literally coming alive more within. And so it's not in any way the intention to emphasize that Kundalini awakening is all about these symptoms, and that's what's so important about it, because it's not. However, I do, from my own experience, remember that it was really, really supportive to hear from other people their story that included all the symptoms that could come with it. So that's my main intention, that you can find support and recognition and inspiration and a sense of feeling resourced after listening to this episode, so that you'll be more clear on your journey and on your path with Kundalini awakening. Enjoy this episode. All right, this week is going to be a special episode. This is an episode about a topic that has been super alive for me for the last 7 years. However, I haven't been sharing much about it online. And usually this is how I do my things. Like, when I'm in the middle of my process, I tend to digest it within myself. And then when I come towards the tail end of it, I start to share more towards the outside world about it. Yeah. Usually in the heat of it, I don't share about it that much. It's when the heat starts to cool down a bit, then I open up more about it. So in this case, in the journey with my Kundalini awakening, I've been on a wild ride, if I could capture it in 2 words. And this is why one of the main intentions why I'm doing this episode, because when my Kundalini awakened in 2016, I didn't have anyone to support me. I couldn't find the right people. At first, I didn't even know what was happening. I was someone that had a spontaneous awakening, so there was no intent whatsoever to awaken my Kundalini, and yet it did. So for me, it was a quite disruptive, while simultaneously life-changing process for me. So the intention for this episode is first of all, to share my experience with you so that if you have been going through a similar process, then hopefully you can find some comfort and support through me sharing my story. But also the intention for this episode is to bring some form of education and information about Kundalini Awakening, because I've experienced it as quite limited, at least in the time 7 years ago where I was intensively searching for it. I didn't seem to find the information that could really support me. So instead of this being one episode, I decided actually to create a few episodes on which I will also bring in guests to speak more about Kundalini Awakening. One of those guests being my main teacher that has supported me on this journey since 2019. And I'm so grateful that I found her, Pema Gitama from Wild Tantra. She will be also joining us on the podcast probably next month. So I'm very much looking forward to welcome her, because she has just so much experience with Kundalini Awakening and Tantra and how to take care of yourself in the process. Okay, so first of all, Kundalini, what is it? So in Sanskrit, literally, Kundalini means she who is coiled, or the coiled one, referring to a primordial energy that is curled up or coiled at the base of your spine. At the base of your spine, tailbone, or the first chakra, your root chakra. They call it a coiled one because often Kundalini energy is referred towards the serpent. So it's a serpent energy, a creative energy, a transformative energy, a healing energy. It's a power energy. It is a life force energy and an earth energy. So many energies. But Kundalini energy has many flavors to it. One of it being an flame of transformation. And so when we get born into this world, there is a certain amount of life force energy that awakens, or when we're actually already being created in the womb, there's a certain amount of life force energy that comes alive, which is enough for us to live and survive in a way. Yeah, I'm going to read a little piece from Sadhguru. He explained it in a very beautiful, simple way, and I want to quote him in a moment. But one of the things that he said is that as humans, if we don't go through the process of awakening Kundalini, we are using maybe around 20% of our life force potential. Right? So once the Kundalini awakens in the body, we open up to new dimensions and new worlds and new possibilities, because we are accessing more of the primordial life force itself. Actually, I would love to share this piece from Sadhguru because I really loved it, what he says. He says, when you activate Kundalini, you activate the dimensions of energy. Other dimensions of life will open up. One thing is, are you ready for those dimensions? Kundalini yoga is the most potent, yet also the most dangerous form of yoga. The most dangerous because if Kundalini is handled improperly, it can become dangerous. So what is Kundalini, he said? He said, a flower blossoming, that is Kundalini. A dog barking, that is Kundalini. Me speaking in this moment is Kundalini. Kundalini is the fundamental life force of existence. And he says, when you are born, certain layers of your life force energy come alive, so you can survive. But this is only less than 20% of your life force potential. The question is, are you ready for those other dimensions? Because even if the most beautiful things come to you, if you are not ready, they will not be so beautiful. So when Kundalini rises, dimensions of your life will change so rapidly that you must be willing to make the outside adjustments equally as quick. And I love that piece because it basically sums up what I want to talk with you about today. So the primordial life force itself being Kundalini, that is curled up like a rolled up serpent at the base of your spine, can awaken in two different ways, in two different categories, so to speak. Yeah. First one being the conscious awakening, where you are having an intent, I am going to awaken my Kundalini. And for that intent, you find the right people to support you with that. You find the right practices in Tantra or meditation or yoga or whatever practice supports you in awakening that Kundalini energy. That's one path. The other one is a spontaneous awakening, meaning there is no intent, I'm going to awaken my Kundalini energy right now. Yeah. The second one, the spontaneous awakening, which is the one that I also went through, can happen when there is a tremendous amount of change in your life. It can happen when, for example, your spiritual awakening has come to a certain point and that cracks open the Kundalini awakening naturally. And I will speak in a moment about the difference between Kundalini awakening and spiritual awakening. But it can also happen through an accident, to trauma. It can happen to the use of drugs. It can happen through a fall on your tailbone, for example. So there is many ways in which the Kundalini energy can awaken inside of our bodies. And Kundalini awakening is an energetic awakening. So energy that awakens in the body, but it has a massive impact on all levels of your being, meaning physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Yeah, so on all layers of your being, once Kundalini energy awakens, it starts to rise up from the root chakra all the way up through all the chakras, all the way up to the crown. And this process for most of us will happen through stages or layers, because once this energy starts to awaken, it starts to also come across the blockages that we hold in our bodies, the emotional, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual blockages that we have in our bodies are being met with Kundalini energy. So that means if I'm holding a blockage in my stomach and the Kundalini energy starts to rise from my root, when it starts to hit my stomach, it starts to create all these different responses that I will share about in a moment, because the energy wants to move, but it cannot move because there is a blockage. Yeah. So Kundalini awakening, and this is why this episode is called The Gifts and the Horrors, can come with a lot of beautiful things, and it can come with incredible challenges as well. Does that mean that Kundalini is so dangerous that none of us should ever come close to it? I would say no. But what I would say is that once we go into the process of Kundalini awakening, that it's super important that you are held, that you feel safe, and that you know how to support yourself in this process. So I would love to share with you my own journey with my Kundalini awakening. And my journey started in 2014, when my Kundalini was not yet awakened. In 2014, by that time, I was already into personal development and into my spiritual awakening for about, I would say, 11 years. So it was 11 years for me of healing myself emotionally, going through different types of therapy, breath work, healing modalities. It was me actively searching for ways to heal myself on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And here I directly come to the difference between spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening. Spiritual awakening is more connected to you healing yourself on an emotional and psychological level. So it's where you access more freedom in your mind, more freedom in your heart, more freedom in your way of being, where you start to expand into the potential of you and the potential of your life, right? Kundalini awakening, the biggest difference for me is the shift from you actively doing the healing and going out to do the healing to then suddenly the healing doing you. Because once the Kundalini energy in your body awakens, it starts to run the healing process almost by itself, right? So the energy is doing you. And it's also very much a physical energy, physically sensible and physically present through some of the symptoms that I will share with you today. So I was on my spiritual awakening journey for around 11 years, of which much of this journey would happen within myself. Yeah, so it was within myself, I started to feel more whole. Within myself, I started to feel more cleaned up within my emotions. Within myself, I started to think more positively, more spacious about myself and life. But my outside life wasn't really reflecting that yet. So at that time, I was in a relationship that was pretty toxic, pretty abusive also. In that time, I was having a job that I didn't really like. I was a social worker and it was okay, but I could feel like this is not really what I'm here for on this planet. I was having really beautiful friendships, but I could also see that my friends that I was having in that time, they would live a completely different lifestyle than me. And so inside of me, I could feel there was this mismatch happening, but my outside world was somehow not yet changing with it. Yeah. So this is where the inner richness could not yet be actualized outside in my life. And maybe you can relate with that also. Maybe you're in that now, maybe at some point in your journey where your inner richness somehow is a mismatch to your outside reality. Yeah, so it was in 2014 when I came across one of my first teachers that would teach me on actualizing myself. Meaning, I made a promise in 2014 to myself to only prioritize where my intuition is calling me in each moment and to take action on that. So it started with me on a Saturday afternoon saying, okay, for 3 hours now, I will make space to only follow my intuition. And that's all I'm prioritizing. And it doesn't matter where my intuition is guiding me, I'm prioritizing that. And so that Saturday afternoon started to spread out through my whole weekend. It started to spread out throughout my whole week. And before I knew it, my whole life was filled with me prioritizing where my intuition was leading me in each moment. Yeah. So that's, by the way, one of the most powerful ways I feel to actualize the potential that lives within you. It's by committing yourself to follow your resonance in each moment, even if you have no clue why you're feeling this or where it will take you. But okay, that will be a whole other episode where we can go more deeply into that. 1 year later, after this promise, I was in the house that I lived in with my previous partner, and I sneezed. And the moment I sneezed, I feel something click in my lower back. And at that point, I was having lower back problems already for many years, but something happened. I sneezed and I felt something dislocate all the way in my lower back. And it turned out that I sneezed myself into a herniated disc. A herniated disc that was so big that I didn't feel my right leg anymore. I couldn't stand on it anymore. I had no sensation whatsoever anymore in my pelvic area. And it was an intense time. It was also the time where life, in that sense, kind of pushed me out of my job, because I think I needed this herniated disc in order to find the courage to quit my job, because it was so scary for me to leave that safety that would pay my bills every month, right? So it was also through my herniated disc that I found the courage to say, I will not go back there anymore. And I couldn't, because I couldn't lift the kids anymore that I was working with as a social worker. What I could still do, however, is stand and give my workshops. So it was a really beautiful transition moment for me to go full-time into my business. But this herniated disc, looking back at that moment, probably started my Kundalini awakening. So it was in a way through a trauma of the body. But in a way, it probably was also because on some level, I was ready to radically and drastically change my life. So I sneezed myself into this herniated disc, and the surgeons wanted to do surgery on me. And I said, I would like to have a chance to heal this by myself. And they gave me that chance. They said, as long as your bladder is like holding everything and it doesn't run, you can try and heal this yourself. And so I did. And it took me on a journey of completely redefining who I am. Because what happened after I had my herniated disc, I quit my job. I ended my relationship. I moved out of the house. I stored all my things and gave lots of things away. And I moved in for a few months in my dad's house because I was planning to travel for 9 months and go to India. Now, looking back, I can see that it was the Kundalini energy that was so under pressure in my body, that wanted to awaken already for such a long time, that I felt like I've been sitting for years on a volcano holding that pressure down. And so when this first moment with the herniated disc happened, something clicked in my body and dislocated, but also it kind of reconnected me to that primordial life force that wanted to open up inside of me. So after all that change, and this is also in this quote that Sadhguru said, when your Kundalini energy awakens, you and your life will rapidly start to change. And this is something that you need to be ready for, or that you need to be willing to be with. Yeah. Because within a few months' time, there I was preparing at my dad's house for traveling 9 months in Asia, and no more relationship, no more job, no more hair because I decided to shave my head, no more car, no more things, nothing, just my backpack and me. So I thought, beautiful, right? I was so grateful for this hernia because it helped me to, like, how to say, realign myself with my path. And so I didn't expect that something very, very intense would actually happen. Because what happened, I think, around February 2016, I was in the living room and I was just hanging out, talking with my father. And he was going into the garden to, I don't remember what he was doing, but he was going into the garden to fix some things or clean up some things. And I remember sitting on the couch and suddenly I feel this incredible pressure in my body. It's almost like my body feels like it starts to blow up like a balloon, and there is just pressure all over my body, and I start to panic. I don't understand what's happening in my body. I feel this panic coming up, and also feeling weird, like, should I ask my dad for help? I don't know what's happening. And so when my dad came back into the house, I said, Dad, I don't feel well and I don't know what's happening. So I lay down on the couch and my dad came to sit next to me, and my body started shaking uncontrollably for hours in a row. My body started shaking and I wasn't doing anything. It was like the energy was literally shaking my whole body uncontrollably. And my dad, who was like actually really calm and like helping me to feel safe in whatever was happening, we didn't know what was happening. That was the first day of a sequence of 3 months where I had to lay down for around 90 minutes to 2 hours for all that energy to move through. Because only moment where I would feel relief in my body was when I would lay down and allow all that energy to move through. And then once that's finished, I would go into my day. And from that moment on, I would immediately start to feel the pressure build up again. So for 3 months in a row, I was having what you could call some of the more darker symptoms of Kundalini Awakening. Yeah. So when you go online and you study a bit more about Kundalini Awakening, you can very often see the light symptoms. So what they mean with light, and I define light and dark very differently, as you might know if you've listened to me for a while. But to keep it easy, the more lighter symptoms that are really beautiful and expansive, and the more darker or the more shadowy, let's call them shadowy symptoms, that can create big challenges. Yeah, so my journey started with that, actually, of 3 months of my body shaking, shaking, and shaking. But one thing also happened on that first day where my body started to shake. It was an immediate, extreme deepening to the connection of my voice within, my intuition. So something in my intuition told me, start to search online for Kundalini Awakening symptoms. And as I was doing that, I could see that a lot of those symptoms I was actually having. And so that gave me the comfort and the trust that what was happening to my body was my Kundalini awakening. Now, one thing that is good to name is that because we're going through some physical symptoms in my share, I would always recommend that if you don't trust what's happening in your body, go to a doctor, right? I'm not creating this episode so that I am like replacing the knowledge of a doctor. No. But what very often happens with the symptoms that Kundalini Awakening can give is that the doctor has no idea how to support you, and they cannot find anything. Everything in the blood is okay. Everything, like, it's beautiful to go and check. But if your doctor says you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, then trust your body and trust that your intuition can guide you through this process. Yeah. So from that moment on, where my body started to shake, when I was laying on that couch with the support of my father, there was a sequence of symptoms that I've experienced over the course of the last 7 years. And I realized that it was such a wide variety of symptoms that I went through an article online that I will link below this episode as well. It's an article from Lonerwolf, and I love how she laid out the symptoms. So I used her list in this article as inspiration and help me to find clarity on how to share all these things that I've been experiencing. Yeah. So just like paying my respect to her writing that article and offering through that the support for me to get this message across more clearly. So as I'm going to share the symptoms, I'm going to start with some of the symptoms that you could say are more the lighter symptoms, the expansive symptoms, the ones that would be labeled more like beautiful symptoms. And then I will share with you also the more challenging symptoms that can happen when you go into a Kundalini awakening. Challenging symptoms in like a subtle way, all the way up to Kundalini going completely out of control. So, light symptoms of Kundalini. First of all, it can feel like you are deeply connected to the divine. Beyond your ego, beyond your personality, there is just a strong feeling of being connected with the divine. Yeah. What I noticed in that symptom is that I started to become less dependent on outside circumstances, but much more inner centered and much more in my clarity. So my intuition would be spot on and super clear about what is the next thing to do, where is the next direction to go in. I would have moments where I would bathe in bliss and oneness. I remember this one time where I was sitting in the living room. That was also in the time where I was staying those few months at my dad's house. The family came over. So we had an afternoon of the family together and we were sitting in the circle. And I remember this moment where suddenly everything became one. And I remember that was the first time I experienced that because it scared me a bit. And so the moments it scared me, I would kind of snap out of it. And then I would relax and then whoop, everything became one again, meaning I didn't feel a difference between me and my mother, between me and my sister, between me and my father. It was like I was them. And that is something that before that moment, I could only grasp from a mental or like from a cognitive state. But in that moment, I felt oneness, not only with my family, but oneness with the house, oneness with everything. And so this is I have it under the light symptoms, but this can also, of course, be so shocking that you experience it as very scary and you would label it under the shadow aspect, right? So I divided here the light and shadow aspects of Kundalini Awakening But maybe you would divide it completely different. So yeah, that's okay. I would have spontaneous full body orgasms. Like I would sometimes lay on the couch, watch Netflix, and then without any reason or any trigger, I would just boom, open into full body orgasm for like 45 minutes or an hour. And I would like not be able to do much but surrender to all the waves that were moving through my body, right? So it's this Kundalini energy can open up in the strangest moments, the strangest moments. But what it always does is an incredible power of opening and clearing, almost like a fire that clears out anything that no longer needs to be there. One of the things that also incredibly increased was a connection to the collective. So I noticed, I remember a few years ago, I think it was in 2019, where there were these really big Amazon fires. I know the Amazon is pretty much on fire all the time, but it was in 2019 where there was a lot of attention to it on the news. And I remember the moment I heard that, I went into such a deep grief. It was like I could literally feel the forest burn. And so there is this very strong deepening of the senses and very strong connection to what's happening in the collective. The same with I think it was in 2021, when the women in Afghanistan went to the streets to protest and they were killed for protesting. I was in the house grieving for days. I was just grieving. My body was like grieving what was happening to these women. And so like that, there is many more examples, but I could feel that my heart was connected to what was happening in the collective. And before that moment, I could kind of close myself off from that. And now I learned to relax with that, because I know that the moment when it opens, if I can allow for that to break my heart open, I know that new inspiration will also come from that. So for example, what happened with the Amazon fires, after I let that break open my heart and my body, I created this collective meditation in which a few hundred people joined, where we did a meditation for the forest, but also a meditation for the leaders that were making these decisions to cut down the forests. And with the women in Afghanistan, the inspiration that came from that was the She Who Stands for a New World online summit, in which 3,000 women joined and in which we were able to raise over 11,000 euro for the women in Afghanistan. So I'm no longer scared anymore to feel all these things in the collective, because I know that it's okay to let it break me open, and that will spark new inspiration that actually supports to create a more beautiful world from it. One of the things Kundalini energy can also do is develop extraordinary gifts and sensory abilities. So your intuition, you just reach new levels of potential in your intuition. So super clear and accurate intuition. To give an example, when I was in my dark retreat in Mexico for 12 days and nights, there was a moment where one of my guides, my spirit guides, connected me to the collective, and I could exactly feel what was happening on the news. So while I was in the dark room, I wrote down 8 things. I would write things down with I couldn't see, of course, but I could read back some of my notes. And I wrote down 8 things that I felt were like, like disasters or things that would come into the news. And half of them happened while I was in the dark room for those 12 days. And the other half happened around that time. So I was completely blown away by how in the world was I able to sense that. And I feel it was because Kundalini Awakening opens us to those new dimensions. Like Sadhguru says, it opens us to new dimensions where, we meet parts of ourselves that we never knew we had. One thing that increases is big life-altering decisions and authentic changes in your life, right? Like I shared in 2016, when my Kundalini awakened, I ended my relationship. I quit my job. I stored all my things. I left the house. I shaved my head. I sold my car. Like big life changes. Now, it doesn't mean that for everybody who goes through Kundalini Awakening that it is this extreme, right? Because there's also people for which the Kundalini energy awakens more in a gradual way. And then maybe there is one big life decision. And also, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who goes through Kundalini Awakening loses their relationship and their job and everything. I think it's also part of who I am and how I'm built, that my soul just like goes in sometimes in super deep, full-on ways. So for my soul, this was a good match. For your soul, it might look completely different. So big altering life decisions and authentic changes in your life can be a big part of it as well. So synchronicities increase tremendously. This is something that I noticed from that moment, that day in 2016, or maybe even that day where I sneezed myself into the hernia. There were so many synchronicities. It was like synchronicities were everywhere, where before maybe I would call it, oh, there's this coincidence right here. From that moment in 2015, I could suddenly see that synchronicities were everywhere. I can see that one of the things Kundalini Awakening does is deepen that communion with the mystery of life, right? So it's like suddenly how life is guiding you becomes so clear. You can so see how, like what I also say, how life is ambitious for you at each moment and how it guides you through an incredible intelligence from one synchronicity to the next, where you just keep on meeting the right people, you keep on like dropping into the right situations, the right decisions. Everything just seems to go into this effortless flow where you feel so held and guided by life. That increases massively. And then healing becomes a natural thing. And I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning. During my spiritual awakening, I was the one almost searching. Yeah, I would say searching. I was a seeker, seeking for my freedom, right? I needed to dig through my stuff within. Beautiful journey also. I was actively working on my healing. From the moment that my Kundalini awakening happened, my healing started to do me. So from that first day on, if I would lay down on the couch and my body would start shaking uncontrollably, I would see all kinds of memories just come out of my body. It's like where normally I would have to go in and dig and search for what in me is still not free. From the moment my Kundalini awakened, what was still not free in me would naturally come to the surface, right? It was like the Kundalini energy would naturally push them out of my body, or even more so, burn them out of my body. So I would lay down and I could see exactly some patterns and understand, this is why I was doing that. And I didn't need to do anything but just staying open, just staying relaxed in my body and allowing all these emotions and situations and memories to move out. So your healing starts to do you instead of you needing to do your healing. Doesn't mean that you don't listen anymore to where you're guided in each moment, because still, of course, synchronicities would still guide me to the right practitioners, the right healers, the right coaches, the right mentors. So that doesn't change, or at least for me. Spontaneous downloads of information. And I would have this a lot at night. So this is like, you could put that in the light symptoms or in the shadow symptoms, depending on how your perspective is on it. But one of the symptoms I had is a lot of nights I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep because there was so much energy moving through my body. I remember nights where the energy would just move me out of the bed and just put me into certain yoga postures. My body would put me into certain hand mudras and I would just stand in them and my body would literally move me. It wasn't me doing anything. I would feel, okay, now this posture needs to be here. And then the energy would just move. And then my body would naturally change into a different posture. And I would just observe, observe and allow. Because this is one thing I noticed as well when it comes to Kundalini awakening and Kundalini energy moving into the body, is that the more I can allow the energy to move, the more relaxed I feel. The more my body starts to resist the energy, the more I am in pain. So I would just allow these things to happen. Like I remember when I was in a 10-day Vipassana in the north of India, Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama is based. And I was somewhere halfway into my Vipassana, and I woke up in the middle of the night. And if you don't know, Vipassana is a silent meditation through which a lot of the old stuff can come out of your body. And so it was for me as well. So I woke up in the night and my arm was curled in the strangest way. My jaw was like locked to a side. And my other shoulder was turned and twisted in the strangest position. And I woke up like that and I was like, whoa, what's happening here? But at that point, I found enough trust to allow to move through my body whatever wanted to move. And so I could feel that there were some tensions being released from my jaw. And in that sense, Kundalini energy is almost like spiritual surgery at some times. I could literally feel how the energy would work inside my jaw. I could literally feel how it was twisting tensions out of my shoulder. And all I was doing was allowing and relaxing into it. I remember times where the energy would specifically work on my heart, and I would feel as if there were ants walking, like little bugs walking on my heart. Sometimes then I would burst into tears. Or I remember when I was with John of God, which is a healer in Brazil, an incredible medium, who would work like, he would have like thousands of spirits work at his center, and you could receive spiritual surgery there. And I remember in one of the sessions, I was sitting and my Kundalini energy activated, and I could feel how it felt like ants walking on my hips. And they were slowly circling deeper and deeper and deeper into my hips, releasing all kinds of things. Now, this process of my hips took many, many years. So Kundalini awakening for me and for many I know around me is a process that takes many, many years and that goes through many, many stages and that asks for a lot of patience as well. I'll share a bit more deeper about that when we go into the shadow symptoms. So spontaneous downloads of information would also happen on a regular basis in those nights where I couldn't sleep. And I would just go and sit and do meditation. I would sometimes do blindfolded meditation and just allow and breathe and move with my body however it wants to move. And I would have the most incredible downloads, like incredible downloads of things that wanted to be created through me, incredible downloads of information on how certain things work and why. Just the most incredible information that you cannot really receive in other ways than through, like, how would you call that? Spiritual downloading. And I'm sure that you've had some sort of an experience where suddenly a whole download of information comes into your awareness. Now, lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is dreams that are so real, that feel so real that you almost don't know if you're dreaming or if you're in something real. And not only that, lucid dreams in Kundalini awakening can also have you feel like you are awake in the dream. So meaning you are aware of what you are dreaming. This can also happen. So at the point right now where I'm at in my dreams is that I can be aware that I'm dreaming while I'm dreaming. And sometimes, because I can have sometimes episodes of nightmares, I can consciously choose to come out of the dream when a nightmare happens. So lucid dreaming is also one of the symptoms that can happen with Kundalini awakening. Dreaming of snakes is also something that can happen. So When you dream a lot about snakes, this could also be a sign that your Kundalini wants to awaken more within, or is awakening more within. Know that dreaming of snakes is a beautiful gift and a beautiful blessing. So no need to be afraid of that. This serpentine energy or serpentine intelligence, it's so beautiful to bring your curiosity to that and experience what comes with that awakening for you, and what comes for you in connecting with the snakes and the serpents. Because as a culture, for example, in the Netherlands, but also I think most Western cultures are Christian cultures. So a lot of the Christian cultures, they hold a certain fear or rejection towards snakes and snake or serpentine energy. Yeah. So I believe that that is to cut people off of their power, because when you connect to Kundalini within, when you connect to the serpentine intelligence of your body and the serpentine power of your body, it just brings you in an incredible stand for what you believe in and the world you want to live in. So systems that want to control people in this world, of course, don't want you to access that power within. Yeah. I'm not saying that as a judgment towards religion. I have a lot of religious family myself. I've studied with many different religions, but I do believe that there are certain control systems in place that reject certain powers that we all have access to. Because if we would all access the depth of our power, of course, people that want to have control systems in place would lose some of their power and control. And then last, for the light Kundalini symptoms, I want to say that it can be that you change the foods that you feel pulled towards. So the foods or the cravings that you have might completely change. What I would say here is trust your intuition. Trust your intuition and trust how your body responds to foods, because it might change. For a while, I was vegan, and that was serving my body in an incredible way. For a while, I was vegetarian, and then that was serving me for an incredible way. Now I'm back to eating meat and more fats, because now I can feel that that's actually serving my body. Yeah, so I would say the best diet is a diet that matches your body in this moment. All right. The more darker symptoms, and I will link the article below from Lonerwolf if you just want to have a quick overview on all the symptoms that I'm naming, because now, of course, I'm sharing it with all these examples. So if you're like, oh, what was it again? You can just click to that article, or I can even copy paste it maybe on some platforms if it's not too long, and then you can go through it. Okay, so the more shadowy symptoms of Kundalini can happen through a variety of reasons. One of them being that it's a spontaneous awakening that was not expected, and you have no idea how to handle yourself in intense emotions, how to handle your body in intense energies, or your body is just not ready to open up yet. So I would always say, and I will at the end of this episode name some things on how you can navigate yourself through Kundalini Awakening, but I would always say to prioritize your spiritual awakening, meaning prioritize cleansing your body, healing your body, working and healing with the things that haven't been resolved yet, like forgiving the people that you're holding anger towards, like healing and emptying your body as much as possible, so that when the Kundalini awakens, there is actually a capacity and a space in your body to move that energy through. Okay, so the more shadowy symptoms are intense involuntary shaking of the body, like I was sharing that I was having for 3 months in 2016, and I can still have it, but luckily it's not in sequences of 3 months anymore, but it can still happen that I need to lay down for an hour or so. You could place it under the shadowy symptoms, but I also believe that it's a natural part of the Kundalini awakening. So I also learned to find trust in it when it happens. And I learned to relax in it when it happens, because that makes it easier for the energy to move through. It can be that the nervous system becomes very sensitive to external input. So it can be that you become very sensitive to bright light. I became, for example, very sensitive to the radiation of my phone. So I could literally feel, if my phone would be next to me, I could literally feel the radiation come off of it. If I put it on flight mode, I could literally feel that it would stop. So I could feel the difference between my flight mode being on or not on. I could feel that, yeah, I was having, for example, a navel piercing, a belly button piercing. And I remember that moment when I took it out, which was also in one of my dark retreats. I could suddenly feel how much more energy could flow through my body. And I put it back in, and I could so clearly feel that it would block it again. So it's a combination of the intuition becoming very clear, very connected to the energy body, but also the nervous system can become hypersensitive, and it can then close the body, right? So it can be that you go into freezing, that you go into like a physical lock of the body. It can be that you have trouble sleeping. Now, this doesn't have to be a shadowy symptom, because if you can just surrender to that and enjoy your night up, then it can be one of the most beautiful experiences you ever had. Like I had so many, not one, I had so many beautiful nights up with Kundalini energy that I would not necessarily put that as a shadowy aspect. However, if you would have that nights and nights and nights on end, then it could also exhaust the body and you would have you feel very, very tired. It can be that there are shocking moments of ego death, meaning that something shocking, very impactful happens, and then it becomes so overwhelming that it scatters your awareness and you become completely uncentered in it. It can be that you have visual disturbances, so that objects start to seem to vibrate, or you start to see flashes of light. It can be that you have intense heat, vibrations, or electricity surge through the body. Now, this for me has been a big one. Like I said, it can be a variety of ants moving through the body, but it can also be like a sense of electricity shooting through the body. And I've been having this for over 5 years now. Luckily, I'm supported and guided now by my Tantra teacher with this. But because of my hernia, my lower discs created a big block in my sacrum. So the energy has trouble moving there. And for the first 3 years, I would have excruciating pain in my sacrum. And just every night when I would go to bed, I couldn't sleep from the pain because of the electricity that would shoot through my sacrum. Luckily, this is much better now. One of the things that helped me a lot in that is de-armoring. Yoni as well as base de-armoring helped me a lot in that. It can be that you experience a bad trip, like you have a bad trip when you are like, when you're when you're drunk and it goes really bad, or when you use drugs and it goes really bad. It could be that that happens without you taking any drugs or alcohol, but just like very intense experiences where you feel like you're tripping, but you didn't actually use anything. And then like the most extreme version where Kundalini goes completely chaotic in the body is where you can lose the sense of what is real and what is fantasy, and you can go into psychosis or feelings like you're going crazy. I've never had psychosis, luckily, but they say that many people that have psychosis, that it's actually because of their Kundalini that awakened at some point, and they have no idea that that actually happened. And also in the healthcare, they have no idea that that actually is happening. And so luckily, I know that it's becoming much more common in the world now for psychosis being approached in a way that it can be connected to Kundalini awakening. So 2 more things: panic attacks, feeling incredible, like feeling very strong terror, or manic, being manic, like really happy and then really down, really happy, really down. Those are also symptoms that can be connected to Kundalini awakening. Now, when it comes to the more darker or the more shadowy symptoms of Kundalini awakening, a few things that I want to share here. One is there's a few things that you can do to support yourself in that process, or actually in general in the process of Kundalini awakening, because when you would ask yourself the question, is this dangerous? Then in a way, it's both yes and no, right? Because it's no, because it's life force energy, it's aliveness. It's what I believe meant to be part of who you are. It's the potential of you coming alive. However, if you are not holding yourself in the process in a correct way, or if you are not guided in it in a correct way, it can go chaotic, and things like all the darker or the shadowy symptoms that I've been naming can occur. So even if they do occur, because I experienced 95% of those darker symptoms, so even if they do occur, they are also temporary. So they will also pass again. And I would say that for me, sometimes they would just happen because the energy cannot move through a block, and it just like goes sideways and goes a bit chaotic. Like there are many reasons why my Kundalini energy went chaotic a few times. And there are a few things that you can do to support yourself in that process, or in Kundalini Awakening process in general. But what makes Kundalini Awakening so challenging at times? It is because this energy wants to awaken in all of you. It wants to awaken in all of your chakras, in all of your energy centers, in all of your body, in all of your flesh, in all of your mind, in all of your emotions. It wants to awaken into all of who you can be. Yeah. But all of us carry blockages physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So the moment where this energy starts to awaken in the body, it starts to hit those blockages. And some of those blockages are connected to your deepest pains. Some of those blockages are connected to your greatest fears, right? So when those are being shaken loose, yeah, in a way, you better be ready to face them, right? And this is why some people would say it's dangerous, or you need to be super conscious when you go into it, because you are going to face your deepest fears. You are going to dance with your scariest doubts, right? And your deepest traumas. And so still I experience that within the Kundalini Awakening process, that life doesn't serve you anything that you cannot handle, yet it might pull you to the very, very edge of what you can handle, right? So both are true simultaneously. So one advice that I would give is to let Kundalini Awakening come to you. Don't go searching for it. Don't go pushing for it. Don't try to pull it in. Just focus on your healing journey, following your resonance, and maybe it will bring you to Kundalini Yoga. Maybe it will bring you to Tantra. Maybe it will bring you to breath work. Maybe it will bring you to plant medicine or specific types of meditation, which can all awaken your Kundalini. Yeah. But it's the same that when maybe the first time you're going to do ayahuasca, you want ayahuasca to come to you. You want it to appear in your reality so many times that you're like, okay, I come and do it now, right? And it's the same with Kundalini Awakening. Like you want to feel that genuine pull to go there. And then, of course, trust your inner guidance. So like I said, Tantra, Kundalini Yoga, breath work, plant medicines, meditations, certain visualizations, they can all have your Kundalini awaken. And then once it's awakened, I want to share with you 5 things that you can do to support yourself in that process, which I think are 5 things that are good to do for yourself always, but become a non-negotiable when it comes to your Kundalini awakening process. First one is to find trustworthy people to prepare and guide you. That's it. Because in that moment, in 2016, when my Kundalini awakened, I didn't have anybody that I could turn towards. I had Google. So that was my first guide to turn towards and find out what was happening. And then I started to find teachers. But this is why I say find trustworthy people, because I found sometimes teachers and all of my intuition would just say, no. And it's very important, and even more important in your Kundalini awakening process, that you trust your intuition. Meaning, if you feel a no, honor that no and don't do it. Yeah, so find the people that feel good for you and let them support you and guide you in the process. Eat healthy foods that don't disrupt your energy. For example, since my Kundalini has awakened, if I eat something with sugar, which I still sometimes do, it completely disrupts my energy. Yeah. Now, if you do that every now and then, fine. But don't do that on a regular basis, because there is such a level of sensitivity in your energy body that you want to disrupt that energy as little as possible. Meaning, when you eat something, notice how you're feeling afterwards. If you feel it spikes your glucose levels to the ceiling, or if you feel that it disrupts your energy and you feel foggy or tired, maybe it's not the right food for you to eat right now. Yeah. So find the foods that have you feel grounded, that have you feel expanded, like nourished and healthy. And there is not really a diet that I would recommend. The diet I would recommend is the diet that your intuition reveals to you. Yeah, so trust your intuition to the things that you want to consume into your body. Third one is very, very important also. Create a harmonious environment for your body. And of course, food is part of that. Eating the right foods for your body is what creates a harmonious environment in your body. Yeah. But creating a harmonious environment for your body needs to happen on all levels if you want your Kundalini energy to stay stable and not go chaotic. Meaning, listen to beautiful, calming music. Do some sounding or singing. So there are certain like sounds when I make them, like certain maybe humming sounds or intuitive sounds, that when I make them, I can just feel the Kundalini in my body calming. Yeah, so exploring with different ways of singing and sounding can be incredible support for your body. Meditation, because it can really help to calm the energy. Qigong. Qigong has been my lifesaver when it comes to Kundalini awakening, because Qigong is a really beautiful practice that moves the energy through the body. So it helps to, like, instead of the Kundalini energy needs to push to everything because everything is on closure, you can support your body to energetically open through practices like Qigong. It's a very gentle, if you don't know Qigong, maybe you know Tai Chi, very gentle practice that moves the energy through the body, where you work with the breath, and it's amazing to stabilize the energy inside your body. Gentle movement, but also harmonious thoughts, right? Because creating a harmonious environment for your body is also connected to your thoughts. So how are you thinking throughout the day? How are you communicating with others? Are you picking a fight with your partner? Is your partner picking a fight with you every week? Then maybe find a way to not do that anymore, because it disrupts your energy and it disrupts your Kundalini, and it can bring you into these shadowy aspects of Kundalini awakening. Yeah. So no fighting, no arguing. Pay attention that whatever comes out of your mouth is harmonious. Whatever thinks through your mind is harmonious. Whatever you put into your body is harmonious as much as possible. The next one is to stop your practices for a while. So practices that I just named are fine. Anything that cools down and calms and grounds the system, beautiful. You can do those in an episode of Kundalini energy being active, but stop any other practices. Specifically, stop Kundalini practices, stop Kundalini yoga, stop things like breath work, plant medicine, tantra. Like, pause it for a while when your Kundalini energy is very active. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you could never do that again, but in the times where I felt like, wow, there is so much moving, I needed to pause on my Kundalini practices. I needed to pause on breath work. I needed to pause on some things just so that my energy could ground back down. So pausing your practices could be one of the most supportive things to do when your Kundalini energy is very active. And focus only on the practices that are soothing, calming, cooling. Because what happens when Kundalini energy is very active, it's like a fire, like a heat, right? And when it overheats the system, again, it can go towards the shadowy aspects of awakening. So cooling the energy down, breathing slowly and deeply, qigong, moving like watery movements. All these things are really beautiful because you still want to keep the body moving so that the energy can keep moving as well in a gentle way. And then the last one that I want to close with, trust your intuition. Trust your intuition, whether you are in a process of your spiritual awakening, whether you are at the beginning of your Kundalini awakening, or whether you are in the middle of it. Trust your intuition and your inner guidance, because your inner guidance knows who are the teachers to connect with. Your inner guidance knows what type of food to eat. Your inner guidance knows the way through your Kundalini awakening. And how do I know? Because for the first 3 years that I was going through mine, I didn't have support from teachers because I didn't find the right one. The teachers that I would find, I would just feel like, no, I feel a no. So trust your own inner guidance over what anybody else is saying, because your inner guidance knows the way through your Kundalini awakening. And if you want to journey there, then your inner guidance also knows the way to your Kundalini awakening, right? And it will naturally bring you there. You don't have to force this. Please don't force this. So trust your intuition. Even if you don't experience the right support, feel where your intuition is guiding you and trust that guidance no matter what. I want to thank you so much for, listening to my story, listening to these symptoms of Kundalini awakening, but also hopefully it can support you, give you some insights, give you some clarity, give you a sense of direction on the next steps to take for you in this path. And over the coming weeks, I'm going to do a few more episodes with some beautiful guests to deepen this topic as well, because the serpent energy is so strong with me since my journey in Benin, and I would love to share more about that as well. But for now, I think for today, you have like a really good first impression and feeling and sense of what Kundalini awakening is and how you can guide it to have it be a really beautiful and amazing experience of awakening and accessing more of your potential, accessing the potential of the life force that is naturally already with you. I wish you a beautiful day and look forward to be with you next week. Much love. So you've been hearing my share about my journey and my Kundalini awakening, and looking back at it, if I could choose whether I wanted this to happen or not, I would do it all over again, including all the shadowy episodes with the Kundalini awakening. Because every time when I would experience something challenging in connection to that process, I also learned so much from it, right? Every time when I would have a chaotic Kundalini energy, I would learn even more beautiful ways to listen to my body. I would deepen my ability to hold myself through the process. So I also believe that when you go through the process of Kundalini awakening, that it's also okay if your Kundalini goes chaotic at some point. I believe that it's not something that you need to be so scared of that you panic when it would happen, but actually that it's an opportunity to learn even deeper, to listen to your body, to learn even more, to hold yourself and support yourself through the process. And not only that, for me in my work as a mentor, me having gone through all these different flavors myself, it's also making it so much easier to guide and support others with this process, right? So I trust that every episode in the light symptoms and every episode in the shadow symptoms had its unique purpose for me. So I really wish that this episode can support you in some way or inspire you in another. And if it does, then please let me know. Let me know how this episode has landed for you. Let me know what you take with you. And I just also want to express my gratitude for this energy because it completely changed my life in some episodes in the most drastic, radical way. But I am a completely different person today. And not in a sense of I'm someone that I don't recognize, but I recognize myself more than ever. And I can see that my outside situations reflect now so beautifully who I feel I am within, right? So I can feel that the actualization of the potential that I was feeling before 2014, the potential I was feeling within, the richness that I was feeling within, I see it actualized outside of me now. I can see how my business is beautifully blossoming. I can feel the relationship that I'm in, so grateful for. I live in a beautiful home. I'm traveling the world. I created a lifestyle that is deeply, deeply true to my heart and my soul. And beyond that, I feel a richness within myself that is just willing to surrender if another storm of change would come, right? So I always say that if life wants to just take it all away and bring me on a whole other path, I'm here for it because I deeply, deeply trust the energy of this primordial life force. And I deeply, deeply trust the journey that it has been taking me on and the journey that it will take me on moving forward, because I'm still in the process. Still, there is more aliveness, more life force awakening in me, becoming available. Still, I'm touching upon deeper and deeper layers within myself. And so may you find your path and what feels true for you in this, and may you feel more resourced when that moment comes potentially for you in the future, or may you feel more resourced in your current process right now, and may you find more trust that you got this. You got this. I'm very much looking forward to let this be a series. I will spread out the series, so there will be other episodes in between also, but there is another beautiful sister in the work coming on as a guest. And like I said, there is my Tantra teacher. So there is more episodes coming up around serpentine energy, Kundalini energy. Like I feel something in me like awakened in starting to share more about Kundalini energy, serpentine intelligence, because during my initiation in Benin, my first initiation in African voodoo in January, my main initiation has been with the serpents. And the serpents in the Beninese tradition are called Dong and Aida Wedo. And they are the two serpents that in, for example, Sanskrit language would be Kundalini. So I can also see that this serpent energy is present in so many different traditions. Like it's the Kundalini in the Sanskrit language, and in the Indian tradition, it's the Ouroboros in the indigenous traditions in the Amazon. It's the serpents in the voodoo tradition. Like so many traditions, these serpents are present, and I feel so passionate about sharing more, bringing more light, bringing more awareness, bringing more education, bringing more embodiment of these serpentine energies. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to continue this series. If anything comes up for you and you're like, hey, Nicole, it would be really cool if you would also share a bit about this in connection to Kundalini. I always love hearing your shares, your questions. So feel free to send me a message. And I'm looking forward to see you next week. Much love. Did you receive any inspiration, motivation, or powerful breakthroughs by listening to this episode? Then please share this episode by taking a screenshot and tagging me in your stories at nicole.nima.costeres. I would love to celebrate you, share you in my stories, and it would mean so much to have my work reach more powerful, passionate women like you. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you next week.